Howdy, this is the Views from the Shop podcast. I'm your host, your one and only host, Tim Miller, and today it is Sunday, March 15th, 2026, and I wish you a very, very, very happy Brutus Day. On today's show, we are reacting to the Ohio State University men's basketball team getting into the NCAA Tournament for the first time in 4 years. Not just that, we'll take a look at their region. How stacked is it? Is it fair for the Buckeyes to be placed where they are in an 8th seed, taking on 9th seeded TCU? We will break down for a few minutes here my opening thoughts to Ohio State taking on TCU. We'll talk about the path for the Buckeyes to advancing in the NCAA Tournament here in the East region. Biggest concern I've got for the Buckeyes, and if the Buckeyes can truly make a run here in March. I have a feeling this is going to be a pretty healthy audience, pretty healthy listened to and viewed show. So that said, if there's new people here, I'm happy to reintroduce myself or introduce for the first time. This is the Views from the Shop podcast. This is the only Ohio State basketball exclusive podcast that recaps and previews every single game Ohio State plays throughout the season. Not just that, we also cover Ohio State through the transfer portal, and then we have a bunch of guests, including head coach Jake Diebler, several other staff members, players, and a whole lot more former players as well on the show in the summer. We call it the Summer Guest Series. So if you're new, and if you just want Ohio State basketball coverage, that's it. If you just want it to be a choice for you, an option, subscribe wherever you get your podcast, subscribe on YouTube, please like the video as well. This is a big time show. This is the first time the Views from the Shop podcast has ever talked about the Ohio State Buckeyes playing in the NCAA tournament. It's not happened. This is year 4 of the show. This is the first time that we've actually got to talk about the Buckeyes in the NCAA tournament. So I'm excited to be here. Thanks so much for being here as well. Last thing I'll say, Views from the Shop podcast.substack.com. You may listen, you may say, I don't need it, and that's totally fine. You can sign up for completely free, and you can get more written content there on the Ohio State basketball Buckeyes, or you can sign up for an insider subscription. Get to the chat. That's where I'm dropping news, notes, nuggets, intel, including, hey, there's stuff going on behind the scenes, and that's as specific as I'd like to be right now. You might want to get in there. I know there's people who say, hey, why not just get on the Trilly Discord, I guess is a thing. I don't know the quality of it. Hopefully there's someone who's in that plus the Substack here with Views from the Shot. They can vouch on which one they prefer. But I would say that there's probably not a better place for you to get insider intel, scoops, things like that than the Substack. So I encourage you to get there. In the description of this episode, you can get a link for an entire week free. Do it before the portal starts because it's as specific as I'd like to be right now. All right. The Ohio State University Buckeyes are in the NCAA tournament. The Buckeyes earn an 8 seed in the East region. They are paired with the number 9 seed TCU Horned Frogs. If the Buckeyes win, we know most likely they're going to play Duke. Duke, the Blue Devils, the number 1 overall seed in the entire NCAA tournament here in 2026. Let's talk instant reaction. What were my thoughts? What was my reaction when Ohio State, their name gets shown on the screen? Well, I expected Duke to be the number 1 overall seed, as I think all of us did. And I said, yeah, I mean, it would make sense for Ohio State to get placed with Duke. I could see it. They're not going to get placed with Michigan. With Arizona, maybe. There's so many different options, but when Duke got thrown up there, I kind of said, I think Ohio State's going to be next. And in fact, they were. And my reaction was arms go in the air. I'm smiling. I'm clapping. And I'm saying, yes, Buckeyes are in. I don't care who Ohio State faces. You could make St. John's a 9. I don't care. Whoever the 9 was, I'm good. Buckeyes are in. I'm happy. Very, very happy. Happy for Bruce Thornton that he's finally in the NCAA tournament. Happy for Jake Diebler. Happy for the staff. All of those different types of things. Very, very happy. And then TCU comes across the screen and I say, okay, that's not a surprise whatsoever. TCU was absolutely a team that was on our radar to get paired with Ohio State in that 8 versus 9 matchup. And Ohio State getting the 8. Honestly, not a surprise either to me whatsoever. I expected Ohio State to be an 8 or a 9. And if you were to threatened me into giving a guess on an 8 versus 9 for Ohio State, I would have said, I think that they're going to get an 8 seed. Here's the thing for Ohio State. Once they beat Iowa, you could kiss goodbye the notion of getting a 10 seed. I know a lot of fans heading into the Big Ten tournament said, man, if we can only get the 7, if we can only get the 10 and avoid a 1 seed, how big would that be for Ohio State in the NCAA tournament? Once you beat Iowa, you had really no shot of getting anything other than an 8 or 9. Even if Ohio State beat Michigan, I still think Ohio State would have been an 8. I don't think that these games down the stretch, I mean, the resumes are so baked at that point. They're almost overdone. I think any additional data is probably cooking the resume a little bit too long, and it gets a little too brown and maybe a little black as well, and burnt and overdone. And you're not interested. I think that's how the committee sees games pretty much after Thursday. So with Ohio State beating Iowa and then going to play Michigan, I didn't expect Ohio State to really be anything other than an 8 or a 9, even if they beat Michigan. Now, you beat Michigan, you go on to win another game, maybe you jump up to a 7. But with the loss to Michigan, it was pretty clear Ohio State was going to get stuck with a number 1 seed. Is it fair for Ohio State to be in the spot that they're in? Look, I think it's impossible to make this fair, quite frankly, for Ohio State. I think that as you look at all of the different ways that you can seed teams and all the different ways you can place teams, and the fact that if Ohio State wins against TCU, they're going to have to go play Duke in Greenville, South Carolina. Many more Duke fans will be there, of course. There's just not a fair way to do it. So I think it's impossible for it to be fair. But the fact of the matter is, in the NCAA tournament, you're going to have to play good teams. Also, the fact of the matter is, Ohio State has been placed in the best region of the 4 in the NCAA tournament. The East region seed total is at 31. That is just barely better than the South at 32. So the Buckeyes are placed with some very, very good teams. You look at the 2 seed UConn, you look at the 3 seed being, where's my 3 seed? Michigan State, the 4 Kansas, the 5 is St. John's, who just crushed UConn in the Big East tournament championship. Even the 6 Louisville, I think that is, there are so many different teams. Do I see it with UCLA? No, not really. But the top 6 teams, seeds in this region, I can see any of them coming out of this region into the Final Four in any really in any order. I really would not be surprised. So yeah, it's gonna be tough for Ohio State. They're easily in the best region, I think, in the NCAA tournament, which sucks for them. You're going to have to face good teams in the NCAA tournament. Once you get to the round of 32, even, you're facing a good team in most circumstances. Of the other 9 seeds, St. Louis gets a 9 seed. That's the team I wanted the most by far. I wanted Ohio State to get St. Louis. Of all the possibilities that even on Sunday when I tweeted out the potential teams Ohio State could play, St. Louis was still number 1 for the team that I would like to play. Utah State, sure. I would take them over TCU. Can't get Iowa, obviously, as a 9 seed there. So you get 2 other options. My last choice of the 3 would be TCU, but that's where Ohio State is at this point. So it is what it is. But let's break down Ohio State taking on TCU here in the round of 64 in the NCAA tournament. We know what Ohio State is. We know how this Buckeye team is built. It's through offense, 17th in the nation, and adjusted offensive efficiency, averaging nearly 80 points per game down the stretch. We know that they've been very, very good offensively and defensively, to be specific. But this is a team that is built by offense. 21-12, pick up a win in the Big Ten tournament over Iowa before losing to Michigan. A really, really solid season for the Buckeyes. Remember in January, even December, and into February, we were wondering, what is this Ohio State team going to do? Are they going to get into the NCAA tournament at all? The answer, yes. And the answer, very easily, as an 8 seed. This is a Buckeye team that is obviously built by offense. We know that at this point. TCU, on the flip side, they're not built by offense. 81st in adjusted offensive efficiency. This is not a team that is built through scoring. It is a team that has been successful through defense so far this year. 23rd in adjusted defensive efficiency. So you're looking at 2 top 25 teams, a top 25 offense going against a top 25 defense. That's a good matchup. That's worth watching. You may not see a shootout. Maybe you will. I don't know. But you're going to see a game where Ohio State's offense is a strength and TCU's defense is the strength. So we'll have to see which style wins in this one. TCU averaging 78 points per game, shooting at 45% from the field. So not spectacular there. Not a great 3-point shooting team, but teams are shooting just 45% from the field against TCU and 34% from the 3-point line are the Horned Frogs so far this season. Ohio State is led by Bruce Thornton. As you look at all the statistical leaders, normally you're seeing Bruce Thornton averaging 20.2 points per game so far this year. He leads the team in assists. He's crushing everyone in the nation in win shares at 7.1. That is an insane number. He leads the team in field goal percentage, second on the team as well in rebounding and in 3-point percentage, leads the team in steals per game as well. Bruce Thornton as a point guard, he is the heart that thumps for this Ohio State Buckeye team, and he's going to try to carry Ohio State as a senior through March Madness. As you look at TCU's side, David Punch is the team's leading scorer at 14.3 points per game. The leader in win shares for TCU is David Punch at 2.2. Remember, Bruce Thornton at 7.1. So a huge difference there. Xavier Edmonds, a nice player, really, really efficient shooter for the Horned Frogs. And then old friend Brock Harding, you may remember the name from Iowa. He's now at TCU, leading the team with 5.7 assists per game. Really, really strong there. He can also sit down and defend at 1.7 steals per game as well. So, how do these teams match up with one another? We can also kind of talk, I guess, about I guess how TCU looks overall. Let's get into kind of talking about just the way that the Horned Frogs got to this point. It was a weird season for TCU. So they lost their first game of the year to New Orleans, not the Pelicans. New Orleans, what are they? The Pirates? Ohio State played them recently and won a couple of years ago. Then they lost to Michigan by just 4. Shout out Ohio State. And then they picked up wins over Wisconsin and Florida. What are we doing, TCU? Just weird. That's straight up weird that you can do that. Maybe take some time to gel and mesh at the beginning of the year. I completely understand that, but just a weird resume. They lost 4 in a row early in Big 12 play, including getting topped by Utah, the Utes, in basketball in 2026. That's not good. But like I said, this is a team that's built by defense, 22nd in adjusted defensive efficiency, according to KenPom, number 30, according to Bart Torvik. Over the last 10, they're allowing 72 points per game, are the Horned Frogs. And this is a team that will put pressure on you defensively. 11.2% steal rate, 12.6% block rate. They're forcing 13.8 turnovers per game. So on Ohio State side, they're going to have to squeeze the orange in this one. Turnovers, not really an issue for the Buckeyes. 13.7% turnover rate so far this year. But when you get into March, Madness, 40 minutes for the rest of your life, turnovers can easily be the bugaboo. And we know defense travels, or at least that's what they say. So that's something to keep an eye on for Ohio State in this matchup with TCU. Now, there's one other thing that I want to mention here. I mentioned this on the last show or second to last show. I don't remember when this show came out, but I talked about what does an ideal matchup look like for Ohio State. You see it on the screen here if you're watching on YouTube. There were a couple things that we needed to see for the Buckeyes in order to feel comfortable about that matchup that the Buckeyes would get in the first round. One, we want a team that is a 3-point shooting team, specifically high 3-point attempt rate, because Ohio State stifles offenses that shoot the 3 ball this year. So far this year, TCU, through the regular season and tournament play, just 36th percentile on 3-point attempt rate. They do not take a lot of 3-pointers. They're not a great 3-point shooting team, shooting it at 33%. And that means it's a bunch of paint scoring for TCU, which I think could be a problem for Ohio State. The Buckeyes defensively this year, they're allowing 30.2 paint points per game. That's not bad whatsoever, but I think we all know at this point, watching this Ohio State team, you want to face a team that isn't all that successful offensively, scoring in the paint. We want them shooting the 3 ball, and even if you make the 3 ball, that's fine. Ohio State's been able to shut down 3-point offenses so far this year. So that's one aspect of this matchup that I don't necessarily like. Another one that I don't necessarily like is rebounding. Ohio State, not a great rebounding team so far this season. TCU, 67th percentile in defensive rebounding rate, so above average, and 83rd percentile in offensive rebounding rate. Here's the thing for TCU. They've got 2 players in David Punch and Xavier Edwards, who average more rebounds per game than Ohio State's best rebounder, which is Devin Royal. And they're both averaging a rebound per game better than Devin Royal. So you got two players much better than Ohio State's best when it comes to rebounding. That's something to keep well in this one. Another really big aspect that I don't know, a lot of people don't seem to talk about, but I will. It's pace. Ohio State has got to play teams that will run up and down the floor a little bit. When you get in the half court against Ohio State, the Buckeyes seem to struggle a little bit offensively and I think defensively. Buckeyes really, really good at getting back and stopping transition scoring, only allowing 7.2 fast break points per game so far this season. That's 92nd percentile in college basketball. You want to face a team that runs up and down the floor. TCU, 69th percentile in pace. They really like to score in transition, 14 fast break points per game. I think Ohio State can hang with that. Another aspect, foulers. Want to face a team that fouls. Ohio State very good at getting to the free throw line, very good at scoring at the free throw line. TCU averages giving 16.2 personal fouls per game, free throw attempt rate at only 30%. That's right in the middle of Ohio State so far this year, comparing wins to losses. So really middle of the road there. So again, I mean, I looked at all these teams. TCU was a team that I mentioned of probably 15 at least in that episode that I posted of, hey, who would I like to see Ohio State play and who would I not like to see Ohio State play? TCU had some parts of its profile that look good, other parts of the profile that don't look good. That's what you're seeing here in terms of TCU stylistically. And then the last one, paint defense. You want to play a team where they are allowing paint points to be scored because that's where Ohio State is best. Here's where you get excited. If you're Ohio State, the Buckeyes score 34.4 paint points per game, while TCU allows 32 paint points per game. That's lower than Ohio State is scoring, but it's a pretty average number. But where you really get excited, TCU is 33rd percentile in percentage of paint points allowed per game. So of the points that TCU is allowing, a lot of those are coming from the paint. The last tenet that I talked about, you want to face a team that's cold. TCU is not cold. They have won 6 of their last 7 games. They won 6 in a row until they lost their first game of the Big 10 or Big 12 tournament. Actually, I don't know. Did they win a game in the Big 12 tournament? Let's check. Yeah, they won a game in the Big 12 tournament against Oklahoma State. It was tight, but they still won 95-88. So TCU has won 6 of their last 7 games. That loss, the only loss of the 7 games come to the last game against Kansas. Nothing to be shy about there. Here's the thing about winning 6 of the last 7. A lot of fans are going to see this and they're going to say, oh, great. Ohio State has to play a team that's on fire right now. Of those 6 wins, only one of those teams is dancing, and that's Texas Tech. That is a game that TCU won without Texas Tech having JT Toppin at that point. Other than that, wins over Oklahoma State, they're not dancing. Cincinnati, famously not dancing. Kansas State fired their head coach. Arizona State fired their head coach. West Virginia, not in the NCAA tournament either. And even if you want to go back further than that, they lost to UCF, who's in the tournament, and then they got wins over Oklahoma State, Iowa State, and Kansas State. Kansas State, again, not dancing. Oklahoma State, again, not dancing. Iowa State, very, very good. We know this. So, yeah, they've got capabilities. They beat Iowa State. But a lot of these wins that Kansas State has picked up, TCU has picked up, not the most special. And they're 28th in Torvik since this run started. In the past 7 games, you go back to, I think, February 21st. They are 28th in Torvik. Season long, they are 49th in Torvik. So analytically, not seen as the best-ish team in college basketball, but still a really, really good team nonetheless. So those are what we wanted to see or didn't want to see in terms of a matchup with Ohio State. TCU is just a mixed bag at this point. The Horned Frogs are 38th in the net. The Buckeyes are 30th in the net. I expect Ohio State to be favored in this game. I'm sure the lines are out already. By the time, I'm firing tweets off. I'm getting notes ready, and I'm recording right now. That's how the evening goes. I don't even know what time Ohio State's going to play at this point. We know they play on Thursday, obviously, but that's kind of how things go. So overall, as we paint a picture of how does Ohio State make a run in this East region, again, they're going to get the 9th seed TCU on Thursday in Greenville, South Carolina. If they win that game, we expect them to play Duke. I don't think Duke is going to fall to Siena. I know Duke is dealing with injuries. I get all that. I think Ohio State, if they win, they're going to play Duke on Saturday. Here's the thing, okay? The pod that Ohio State is playing in, TCU, I think, is a tough matchup. I don't think there's any question about that. Then even if you win, you got to play top seeded Duke. And let's say somehow Ohio State beats Duke. You got to play Kansas or you got to play St. John's, most likely at that point. St. John's just whipped UConn last night in the Big East Championship. Kansas has potentially the number 1 overall player in all of college basketball. And then you move on to, you want to go battle for a Final Four spot? Louisville, we've talked about them already. They can score. They're playing pretty well right now. I would say at 23-10, they're going to play USF to start the NCAA tournament. If Louisville gets by then, probably going to play Michigan State. We know how Ohio State played Michigan State the first time. It was a tough game, but Tom Izzo in March against Jake Diebler. And then you go to UCLA. Ohio State beat UCLA in a rock fight. Mick Cronin is insane. I don't know what type of medication he should be on. He's clearly not on it. I don't want to face Mick Cronin. And then, of course, there's UConn as the 2 seed. Right now, as you look at this bracket for Ohio State, they are going to most likely, at some point, they're going to have to run into the likes of Shire, Hurley, Izzo, Self, Patino. And that doesn't even count your first round matchup, who is Jamie Dixon, one of the most underrated coaches in college basketball. Just period. One of the most underrated coaches in college basketball. He just wins. TCU, not a winning program whatsoever. He's won there at TCU, getting them to the tournament, I think, second time in 3 years, potentially, or maybe second year in a row. Now, look, this is a tough spot if you're Ohio State. There's really no doubt about that. But as I look at just this game against TCU, and I don't have a prediction for you or anything like that at this point, as that's not how this is going to go. I'll give you a full game preview and breakdown when the time comes. But this TCU team, they're going to be tough for Ohio State to beat. I think that this profiles as a very, very tight game. I'm not sure that either team really blows the other one out in most occasions. But there are some good things for Ohio State as we look at how the Buckeyes and Horned Frogs match up, and specifically just the situation that Ohio State is in at this point. I think one of the things that you can look at is that the Buckeyes are hot right now. The Buckeyes are really, really hot right now. We talk about that all the time. They're number 8 in Torvik since February 14th. So since Valentine's Day, there are not very many teams that are better than Ohio State. And actually, I'll name some teams that are not as good as Ohio State since February 14th. One, St. John's in the same region as Ohio State. Another, Michigan State in the same region as Ohio State. Another, really, really good, right? Virginia just made it to the ACC championship. Virginia beat Ohio State during this stretch, and yet Torvik says Ohio State is the better team than Virginia since February 14th. Second-seeded Houston, not as good as Ohio State since February 14th. So many other teams. Gonzaga, Arkansas, Texas Tech, UConn, Alabama. So many different teams that are not as good as Ohio State since February 14th. And I said right before that game, and even after that game, I said, look, this is the time to start feeling encouraged about the Buckeyes. It was the Virginia, it was the Michigan State, and it was Wisconsin. Those 3 games, back to back to back, is where I said, hey, I think Ohio State is starting to turn a corner here. I think there's a really, really good shot that the Buckeyes can get hot here down the stretch. And that's exactly what has happened to this point. There's plenty of people across the nation who are sighing a huge sigh of relief right now that they don't have to play Ohio State. The 9 seeds, the 8 seeds, thrilled that they're not going to have to play Ohio State. The other 1 seeds that are not Michigan, Arizona, Florida, thrilled they don't have to play Ohio State. This is a Buckeye team, again, that is very, very hot right now. They've got one of the best lead guards in all of college basketball, and Bruce Thornton, he's a senior. Everyone in March talks about how much you need a senior point guard to lead you through the NCAA tournament. Ohio State has that. Check that off the bunch. Check that off the list. Not only that, they've got another shooting guard in John Mobley Jr. Tell me, as you think about Ohio State playing TCU right now, if it's safe for you to do so, shut your eyes. Imagine John Mobley Jr. with 8 minutes and 59 seconds left to go in the second half against TCU. It's 57-54, and John Mobley Jr. hits a huge three for Ohio State to go up 60-54. You're telling me that you don't see John Mobley Jr. and Bruce Thornton going blow for blow, shot for shot with any other guard duo in all of college basketball at this point? I'm not saying that they're the best guard duo in college basketball, but what I will say is that guard duo can go up with anyone in the nation. So you've got that going for you. You've got a team that's shooting the three ball pretty well as of late. So far this year, I mean, that 3-point percentage continues to go up. They're now 36% from deep this year are the Buckeyes. That's really, really solid. You look at even their past couple of games here. Against Michigan, they shot 8-24. Not great, not horrible. Against Iowa, not great, 6-20. Still won that game. Indiana, 46%, making 11 3-pointers. 16 made threes against Penn State at 70%. 38% against Purdue. 50% against Iowa. 11 of 21 against Wisconsin. This is a team that's really starting to shoot the three ball well as well. So you've got great guard play. You've got senior leadership. You've got a lot of experience as well with John Mobley Jr., Dem Royal, Christoph Tilley. These guys have played a lot of basketball. Brandon Knowles played a lot of basketball coming off the bench. So you've got that going for you. And you've got a defense that, again, since February 14th, they're 24th in the nation in adjusted defensive efficiency, according to Bart Torvik. I'm not telling you Ohio State's going to go on a run. I'm not promising that. But what I will say is that at Haslametrics on Twitter, look them up. I caught this right before recording, so I decided I'd throw it in. 65% chance to beat TCU. Those are good odds. Ohio State's going to be favored to win that game. Ohio State probably should win that game. 18% chance to get to the Sweet 16. Is that what you would think? You think Ohio State has an 18% chance to beat TCU and Duke? I'm kind of surprised the number's that high. What do you think about Elite Eight? Well, Haslametrics says 1 out of every 10 tournaments, Ohio State's going to the Elite Eight. That's pretty crazy. And 5% chance to go to the Final Four for the Buckeyes. I'm just saying, this is a tough region for Ohio State. I think at this point, we would all be happy if the Buckeyes beat TCU and then gave a valiant effort against Duke. I know some fans, if you cut out the top 20 and the bottom, or you cut out the top 10% who are super optimistic and think Ohio State's going to win every game and everything's fine no matter what, and the bottom 10% who say, I hate Ohio State, I hate Jake Diebler, this program's not where it should be, I'm really, really mad. I get both of those perspectives. It's fine. But if you take that out, the middle 80%, I would say most likely says, let's beat TCU and let's be competitive against Duke. Give me something to root. Do not let the score be 77-51 with 4 minutes left to go in the game against Duke. If you get that, I think you're happy with what Ohio State has done, especially thinking back to January, especially thinking back to the end of February where they got destroyed. They got boat raced at Iowa. So this Ohio State team is in the NCAA tournament. They have the ingredients to go make a run here in March. Because of that, we're excited. So the Buckeyes are going to play on Thursday. Here's the plan for this week. On Tuesday, you're going to get a show for me, complete game preview of Ohio State number 8 against TCU number 9 in the round of 64 in the NCAA tournament. So waiting for a time on that one. When we get it, I'll tweet it out. Make sure you're on the Substack. Make sure you subscribe wherever your podcast. We will continue to cover this team no matter what happens here on the Views from the Shop podcast. Buckeyes are dancing. You should be too. Congratulations, folks. We've made it to March, and the Buckeyes are in the NCAA tournament. Until next time, thanks so much for listening to today's show. I'll shut up before you shut me off. Go Bucks.